Right, hello, sorry I'm late. Today's lecture, we're going to be looking at an introduction to the basics of the world. For those of you that don't know, I am Professor Hiero Phantes, Bachelor of Esoteric Art, Master of Ritual, Master of Elemental Theory, and Doctor of Divine Non-Corporeals. Obviously, a lot of the concepts we'll be going over today will be greatly simplified for you, so you should be able to understand it all. We'll be starting off with the basics of elemental theory, then I'll introduce you to some of the major players on the world stage, aka some divine non-corporeals. So, basic elemental theory. What are the four worldly elements? A child knows this. Air, water, fire, and earth. These elements don't make up the substance of the world, but they do make up the character of the world. And when I say world, I obviously don't mean this sphere, but all spheres, many of which lie beyond even my knowledge. Can anyone name a sphere other than our own? No? Right. Well, obviously we have our own sphere, an Earth sphere. We also have the water sphere. The borders our own, often called the mist of wisps, the barrier of which is referred to as the forest. We also have an unidentified water sphere and an unidentified earth sphere. Now, can anyone guess how we have knowledge of these spheres, despite the fact that they do not, to the best of our knowledge, seem to interact with ours? If you had done the reading on the mist of wisps, it should be fairly easy to connect the dots. Right, I suppose I could go over the mist of wisps. The mist of wisps is a water sphere, and no, this does not mean it's made up entirely of water. Our sphere is an earth sphere, and it contains a variety of materials, because elemental theory is not about the substance of the world. It's about the character of the world, yes. So, by any small chance, could someone enlighten us as to the character of elemental water? No, I didn't think so. Water is all about feeling. This is a difficult concept to grasp, because feeling obviously exists in this sphere. The difference is in this sphere, an earth sphere, our existence depends on sensation. We are physical beings that, before evolving to higher levels of consciousness, were exclusively driven by sensation. Hunger, thirst, sexual urges, all revolving around sensation. In a water sphere, or at least the mist of wisps, sensation is irrelevant. It is a completely different type of existence. The unconscious, or what we call the unconscious in this sphere, becomes alive. Emotions are the driving force of each being, but without physical form, individualism is defunct. Water spheres tend to be incredibly creative places because of the lack of barriers between feeling and doing. There isn't really any doing. Feeling is doing. Excuse me. Think of your dreams, the manifestation of the unconscious in this sphere. There are no limits as to what can happen in a dream, nor to what can be felt in a dream. From what we know, this is the best representation of the mist of wisps. Of course, not all water spheres are this raw. Just as we no longer live in a solely sensation-based world, it is presumed that water spheres can and do follow a similar pattern of evolution, gradually becoming aware of sensation and physicality, much in the same way we're developing an awareness and feeling of spirituality. Excuse me, any questions? Yes?
You said this sphere intersects with ours?
Yes?
How did we find out what it's like if physical form doesn't exist there? Like, I'm assuming you couldn't just send a probe through.
You are correct. A probe most definitely could not get through. Can you think of something non-physical in our spheres that we could send through? I've already mentioned it. Our unconsciousness, our spirits, Our souls, for lack of a better word. This leads me to the forest. It's unknown if the forest is a phenomenon unique to our sphere and the Mist of Wisps, or whether similar gateways are common between spheres. It's entirely possible there are more gateways to other spheres from our world that we haven't discovered yet. As for the forest, it is exactly how it sounds. A forest like any other in our sphere, except somewhere inside, it is a gateway. Irritatingly, for those of us who like certain things, it shifts location, which means it can't be found unless it is meant to be found. It may seem unscientific to accept it as an explanation, but seeing as science is a very Earth-centric method of exploration, it seems sensible to pause our dedication to those ideals. What we can quantify by sensation is the existence of the Guardiana. Her corporeality is debatable because she is capable of taking on corporeal form. However, because she isn't restrained to it, she is classified as non-corporeal. Anyway, that's probably one of the least interesting things about her. She is the gatekeeper to the Mist of Wisps. If you want to get in, you have to go through her. Her presence has been described and recorded throughout history, mainly by pilgrims who made the journey to the forest as a religious pilgrimage. She has been described as sinister, comforting, playful, kind, disconcerting, sometimes by the same people. What remains the same is her welcome, which was on this week's reading. Can anyone tell me the gist of it?
It's a warning?
Yes! It is indeed. She warns you that you can leave your body behind, but that there is no guarantee it will be there when you return. Does anyone know the 4 outcomes she lists? No? Well, number 1, that the Allseeing keep you there in the Mist of Wisps, because you will do terrible things if you're allowed to have physical form. Number 2, they don't let you in because you haven't fulfilled your destiny in the physical world yet. Number 3, the Allseeing like the look of you and take you to the realm. And number 4, your soul isn't strong enough to exist without your physical form to ground it, and you cease to exist. So, not exactly a risk-free process to obtain data on the Mist of Wisps.
Sorry, could you go over the Allseeing?
That was also in the reading this week. Unfortunately, since I had to go over all of that, we're out of time for the lecture portion this week. We'll go over the Allseeing next week when I hope you will all have caught up with the reading. If anyone has any questions, don't email me. I won't reply. See you next week, class.